Good morning, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We will give it just another 30 seconds or so before beginning our webinar. All right, let's get started. Hello again. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to the BlueGreen Alliance webinar on how utilities are using federal dollars to accelerate the pace of lead service line replacement in Great Lakes communities. I am Richard Diaz, Water Infrastructure Field Manager at BlueGreen Alliance, alongside my colleague, Michaela Brunner. Together, we will help coordinate communications for this webinar in the background. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the Blue-Green Alliance YouTube channel for later viewing. We will also send an email after the webinar with all the presentations and resources we shared today. Audience microphones are muted to limit distractions to the panelists and other viewers. Questions can be submitted using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We will be collecting questions throughout the webinar, so feel free to submit them as you think of them. This webinar seeks to lift up National Lead Poisoning Prevention Week in the fight for clean water. As everybody knows, there is no safe level of lead in your blood, and countless studies show that even at low levels of exposure, considerable damage can be done. Lead exposure is not a good thing and has been related to numerous poor health outcomes. Substantial evidence shows us that there is a direct correlation between lead poisoning and violent crime, and research quantifies for us that it costs states and municipalities a lot of money when we are reactive to lead poisoning versus taking preventative measures like lead service line replacement. Proactive and planned lead service line replacement serves as an important step in protecting our drinking water from lead. Today, we have three utility leaders from the Great Lakes cities of Chicago, Detroit, and Milwaukee who can share how their lead service line replacement programs are making significant strides to help reduce the risk of lead poisoning via water. Since the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law and its investment of $15 billion, communities that historically have had a hard time getting resources from their state's revolving fund program have been able to secure resources and chart a path toward 100% replacement of every lead service line within their communities. However, the nexus of charting a path and actually performing lead service line replacements can be difficult to bridge. The infrastructure bill was an initial down payment, and we only have one federal year left. The scope of work is large, and securing funding has been the biggest challenge to date. There will need to be an incredible effort to ramp up community outreach to actually get inside homes, and there will need to be citywide concerted efforts to build both the public and private workforces to get the job done. Most of the country's lead service lines are located within the Great Lakes communities, and while we have an ambiguous road ahead of us, there's been much progress to date. Today, we will start by hearing from our colleague, Mike Grillo, Deputy Commissioner at Chicago Department of Water Management. Mike.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for setting this up, Richard. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Mike Grillo. I'm the Deputy Commissioner with the Chicago Department of Water Management. I have been in this position now over 3 years, but been with the City of Chicago now for 28 years. So we're going to go through our lead service line programs, give a little update, quick update on where we are, kind of what we do. So we'll get right into it. You can go to the next slide, please. So high level, Chicago Water Department, at our core, our responsibility is to provide safe, clean drinking water, right, to nearly 3 million Chicago residents, as well as 120 surrounding suburbs. We are the third largest department in the city of Chicago, only behind fire and police. We have about 2,200 employees. And again, high level, just what we do here, we maintain and operate two intake cribs. Those two intake cribs allow water to flow into our two treatment plants. We have the number 1 and number 8 largest conventional treatment plants in the world. From there, we send our water to 12 pumping stations, and then it is pumped through over 4,300 miles of water main and about 500,000 water connections. What we are doing is on any given day, we treat and pump about 650 MGD. That's about 30% of our rated capacity. So we definitely have room to grow. We would love for downstreamers to pick up new downstreamers so we could push that Lake Michigan water as far out as we can. So we supply water to about a little over 5 million people, which is 41% of the state. You go to the next slide, please. I'll quickly move through the sewer side of things. Obviously, responsibilities on the sewer side. We also have a combined sewer system that we manage that is both wastewater and stormwater. We convey that to the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. So we, at the meter shop, or I should say at the water department, we treat the clean water, and our friends at MWRD treat the not so clean water. But our sewer covers the entirety of the city. It's about 230 square miles of drainage. That was very quick, in a nutshell, what we do here. So I can get back into lead service lines. Next slide, please. Okay, so Chicago has over 400,000 lead or suspected lead service lines, which is more than 45 states. This illustration here shows a typical layout of water and sewer infrastructure. The sewer main, deepest part of the street, water main sits to one side or the other. This is mainly to show the break of what is the public side of the service and what is the private side of a water service, because we always talk about a water service as public and private. The city's responsibility would be the portion that goes from the water main to that city shutoff or B-box. That's our responsibility. The responsibility of the property owner is from that city shutoff valve into the home. For the replacement programs that we offer, though, we cover the replacement full from the water main all the way into the home. We maintain a lead service line inventory as well. And just one of the things that we use to help us identify service line material, there's other than physically going and seeing it, lead service lines are generally 2-inch or smaller in diameter, and lead pipe was banned in 1986 to be used for water service lines. So we can safely say if a property was built prior to 1986 and it has a service that is 2-inch or smaller in diameter, is likely lead. Water funds can only be used to pay for the public side of the service. Only grants, general obligation bonds, or other non-water funds can be used to pay for the private side of that replacement, because we cannot use water funds to make improvements on private property. We'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so here's an update on the various programs that we maintain here in Chicago. This is showing 6, we call it 7. We combined our water and sewer into one here just for the sake of the slide. But the first program is our owner-initiated program, which, as the name would indicate, is a replacement initiated by the homeowner. They hire a private contractor to pay and replace their own service lines. What we do is we waive up to $5,000 in permit fees to help with that. Lead service line replacements are expensive, right? Especially in Chicago, whether we do it or they hire their own contractor to do it. We didn't expect to see as many as we're seeing. We're pleasantly surprised there. We've had over 1,100 people replace their own service to date. The next program will be our equity lead service line program. And I will mention that the homeowner initiated program is the only program that comes at a cost to the customer. Everything else that we offer is completely free. The equity program is a free full lead service line replacement for low-income homeowners. So it is income qualified. There's an application process. It is offered to owner-occupied single-family two-flat homes. It's a volunteer program citywide. Those service lines are being replaced by a contractor right now. And we have seen since 2021, I think the fall of 2021, we started that program. A little over 2,100 service lines have been replaced through the equity program. The next program that we offer is for state licensed daycares. So a free full lead service line replacement for any state licensed daycare. we have a priority on low-income neighborhoods to start with. So there is no application process. It is another voluntary program. We reach out to any state licensed daycare. There's about 2,200 daycares in the city of Chicago, and we estimate about 1,700 of those have lead service lines. We have replaced so far almost 400 daycare service lines. That is the one program that we feel that if we can get the funding for that, we can knock that out. It's only 1,700 service lines, right? So it's always in the back of our minds that it's a huge number, but if we could just take one chunk and finish it up, it would be the daycare section there. That is also, like I said, that is done by a contractor. The largest program that we offer right now is our leaks and breaks program. That is if a lead service line is impacted by a leak or a break or a repair that's made. Think maybe a broken main that's repaired that may impact multiple service lines. We offer a free full lead service line replacement for any home that was impacted by any underground construction, really, not just water and sewer work, but any contractor that may impact the lead service line. That program is also performed by both contractors and in-house crews. Like I said, it's our largest program to date. We've completed almost 8,700 replacements through the leaks and breaks program. Then we come to our CIP projects. So it's water main, sewer main, any household that falls within the project limits of a water or sewer main replacement, we offer a full lead service line replacement. And it's been a little bit of a slow start with our CIP work, but we're now kicking it into gear, and we've replaced so far about 1,600 service lines as part of our CIP projects. And again, that is both with in-house forces and contractors. And then finally, our last project, not the last one listed, not the only last of the projects that we have. We have others that we're piloting, but our block level project is a project where we replace lead service lines only on blocks that have water or sewer mains that are installed after the year 2000. So the thought there is there's a newer water main, there's a newer sewer main, or possibly a newer line sewer main. We'll come in, we'll replace the service lines, the lead service lines. And then as far as the water department is concerned, we don't have to go back to that block for a long time, 50, 75 years maybe, because now the sewer main, the water main, and the service lines have all been replaced. We have identified so far about 180 blocks that qualify for that block level replacement. And we're just getting that going. So we've replaced almost 400 now to date as part of our block level projects. We can go to the next slide, please. So here is just a snapshot of progress to date based on year or by project. You can see the first 2021, 2022, just a handful of replacements is when we just started. In 2023 is when our leaks and breaks program kicked in. So you can see that it jumped everything up, and that's really when production kicked in. That first year in 2023, a lot of our CIP projects had to be redesigned to then incorporate lead service line replacement. So that was a little bit low in 23, but now you can see 2024, and now so far in 2025, as of about a week ago, we're at about 4,800 replacements so far this year. We're estimating to be somewhere around the 6,000 to 6,500 range by the end of 2025, which by the end of the year, we will have definitely over 15,000 replacements completed. And just a few future regulatory considerations. So in April 2027, Illinois state law will then require us to replace 2% of our lead service lines annually, which will be for us about 8,000 a year. And so we're ramping up to get these to that point. And then the big one would be LCRI that kicks in towards the end of 2027. Chicago will be having to replace service lines at a rate no less than 39 replacements for every 1,000 connections. And for us, that would be about 19,000 a year, essentially starting in 2028. So that's when things get real. That's when things get really busy. So we are, over the next few years, really going to be ramping up to be ready to meet that number when it comes. Okay, next slide, please.
Mike, we will
Yes,
need to move on to our other panelists, but you have other opportunities to speak on some of these other slides. Thank you for that.
got you. Thank you.
Large program. All right. Next, we will hear from Mr. Patrick Pauly, Superintendent at Milwaukee Waterworks. Pat.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Richard. I'll get us back on time. Abby, you can forward the slide. So from Milwaukee's perspective, and I have to tell you, I ordered the points on these slides, but I'm not really happy with how I did it. So I'm going to adjust a little bit. 2025 goal of 3,500 replacements. You can see the breakdown. Our program is made up of a number of different sub-programs similar to Chicago. We started the prioritization program in 2024, and you can see that's the largest aspect of the program. And then we also replace lead service lines with water main replacement projects and prior to pavement reconstruction. Prior to 2024, the biggest reason for replacing a lead service was leak or failure. You can see we average approximately 600 a year. We also replace services at all licensed childcare facilities. And then we have a new program allowing owners to request to be included in our program. And so Richard mentioned the bipartisan infrastructure law. The benefits to Milwaukee have been significant. It has allowed us to expand the program. It also allowed us, thanks to our mayor and common council, to eliminate the property owner cost share for lead service line replacements if a property qualifies for the program. Prior to 2024, there was an owner cost share that was approximately 1/3 of the private side cost, was anywhere from $1,600 to $1,850. It was adjusted annually. It was a burden and it was a hurdle to getting consents from property owners. So, and you can see at the top of the screen, our costs have stabilized right around $8,500 per service. Those are the construction costs only. The public side stabilized a while ago. The private side has continued to drift down somewhat, most recently due to our focus on the prioritization program, which is neighborhood by neighborhood. So there's certainly efficiencies realized by working in neighborhoods rather than doing one-off locations throughout the city. Next slide, Abby. Lots of numbers here. I think the most important numbers are second from the bottom, the total replacements. You can see we began in 2017 and had a slow ramp up and then steadily replaced approximately 1,000 a year. But in 2024, thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law funding, we set our goal at double. So it was 2,200. We actually completed nearly 2,700 replacements. And in 2025, our goal is 3,500. This is the number as of mid-September. More recently, when I checked, we are now over 2,500 replacements, but we need to complete 100 per week for the remainder of the year. So it's going to be a little bit of a frantic finish to get to that 3,500 goal. And we've replaced over 11,000 since the beginning of the program. We still have approximately 63,000 remaining services to replace. Next slide, Abby. So as I mentioned, the bill funding has been incredibly beneficial to Milwaukee. The state of Wisconsin allocations were 48 million in the first year, 81 million in 23 and 24. Our DNR administers that funding through the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program. The principal forgiveness has been very impactful to our city and to our property owners, as I mentioned, because the owner cost share was eliminated in 2024. That was due directly to the ability of the city to recover principal forgiveness funding to cover those costs. I should have highlighted the third, highlighted, bolded, flashing red, the third bullet point, which is the states have not received the federal fiscal year 2025 allocations from the EPA yet. They're typically expected in spring. We had heard they were coming in summer. It's now fall and we don't have them, which is caused a lot of consternation about how to move forward for 2026. So I mentioned the Wisconsin program, our funding award that we received last October was $34 million. That is going to cover the 3,500 replacements in 2025 and a portion of the replacements in 2026. We applied for $50 million for federal fiscal year 2025 and are awaiting the allocations to the states and then the award from the state to the city. We don't anticipate receiving all 50.5 million, but certainly are hopeful we get a large percentage of that. Next slide, Abby. So I mentioned our prioritization program. We're working in 15 neighborhoods this year and nearing 90% completion. The outreach began early 2025. I think Chicago and Detroit would probably concur that outreach is the longest, most challenging component of these projects, getting the consents and permissions from the property owner, schedule, coordinating, contracting. It's all very challenging, but the outreach takes a long time. And so we will be beginning outreach for 2026 in November of this year. We're going to start sending mailers right away in 26 and planning events for early 2026 so we can get the consents in place before construction starts in March. And as I mentioned, 2026, the goal goes up. It doesn't get easier. We'd like to get to 5,000 next year. That will primarily be done by expanding the prioritization program. We reprioritize by census block group every 2 years, so we'll be updating that data. And our long-term goal is to maintain a rate of 5,000 replacements per year for the next 12 years to meet the EPA lead and copper rule improvement rule of all completions by the end of 2037. Last slide, Abby. And this is just, we began an owner request program last year, and which means an owner can request to be in our program. We will then, provided we have capacity, we will coordinate the replacement, pay the upfront costs. The owner then agrees to pay the lesser of the actual cost to replace their private side or the average cost. And so the average cost for private side, I think, was set at $3,999 earlier this year. We had quite a bit of interest. We're over 900 applicants currently, and so we're working through that backlog, and we're going to try to add up to 200 locations per year moving forward. And we will be republicizing that program periodically to make sure that everyone is aware that that's an alternative to them. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Pat. Next panelist will be Mr. Bryan Peckinpaugh, Director of Public Affairs at Detroit Water and Sewerage District.
Good morning. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate the opportunity to talk during this webinar about what we're doing here in Detroit. My name is Bryan Peckinpaugh. I'm the Public Affairs Director for Detroit Water and Sewerage Department. Abby, you can go to the next slide. So to put it in perspective, Detroit, while we have a population of about 633,000 people, we did have a increase in our population in the past year, thanks to the updated census numbers and our growing city. But our landscape and our housing stock, you can fit San Francisco, Boston, and Manhattan within our 141 square miles of our city of Detroit. Next slide. So we implemented our full lead service line replacement program as part of our capital improvement program in 2018 while we're replacing water mains. We also inspected the service lines and replaced lead service lines that we were going down the street, replacing the water main. So on average, we were doing about 700 replacements per year starting in 2018 and refining our program when we launched it in 2018. Since 2018, we've had no direct cost to homeowners. It's all been either funded by our capital bonds or federal or state funding, which you'll see in a moment. We are required by the most stringent lead and copper rule currently in the nation, which is Michigan. We're required to replace a minimum of 3,500 lines per year in the city of Detroit, whereas the revised lead and copper rule that will be implemented in 2 years will require us to speed that up in a 10-year timeline, which means about 8,000 lines per year. We have 72,000 lead service lines in the city of Detroit based on our data, as well as machine learning or AI through Blue Conduit, our partner. We've replaced over 15,000 lines since 2018, including 3,800 this year. So we are over the Michigan requirement for this calendar year in 2025. We have asked for an extension from our state of Michigan and have preliminarily received it. We did ramp up our pace of lead service line replacement in May 2023 because of increased funding from ARPA dollars as well as bipartisan infrastructure law dollars. Next slide, please. So this is the makeup of our funding, the pie chart. So 62% of our funding in the last 2 years has been from the American Rescue Plan Act via the state of Michigan. And then we also had other sources. We did use capital bond dollars for full lead service line replacement, including on the private side. The federal government does allow for that. The accounting group did change the rule to allow for municipal bond dollars to be used for lead service line replacement because it is a state and federal requirement. Next slide. And here's the breakout of our programs. We started with a grant in 2018 to study individual lead service line replacement, full lead service lines. We found out, similar to Milwaukee, that one-offs going from one neighborhood to another and doing only a couple houses in that neighborhood is very expensive. So we went to a neighborhood by neighborhood approach, which you'll see in a moment. So all our grants after 2023 are focused on a neighborhood by neighborhood approach, including our American Rescue Plan Act dollars, the EPA Competitive Wind Grant, state revolving fund dollars, as well as capital dollars. And also not on this list is we did receive a congressional allocation for the Army Corps of Engineers to pull or remove lead service lines in the 40,000 houses that were demolished in the city of Detroit in the last 10 years. We do have a project with the Army Corps for that. Next slide. We allow our contractors and our employee crews. We have a mix of capacity for, in order to replace 3,500 lines plus per year, we had to increase capacity. So we're allowing flexibility in how service lines are replaced. And all our service lines for lead are replaced with copper. You can pull the service with a main excavator. You can use directional boring, which those machines are very expensive. Some of the smaller contractors can't afford them. So we offer the other two options, pulling the service line, or basement buddy, which you push the service line from the basement out to the stop box in the front yard. And because of this capacity and adding employee crews who also replace lead service lines, we have 3 employee crews. We were able to reduce the cost per house to $9,300 per line. Next slide. So we did create in 2018, and we continually refine it, standard operating procedures for our program. Our program's integrated. There is one person who's our lead czar, so to speak, our lead and copper rule czar, and he does the compliance testing as well as assists with the program. But throughout every division of the Detroit Water Department, there's someone that's part of their role is to work on the lead service line replacement program. So including our meter ops team, which have access to the app, so they're able to, when they go and replace a meter in a home or a business, they go into the app or ArcGIS to update the information, say this property has a lead service line. So our mapping is live so that we can better inform on where to replace lead service lines. And then we have extensive community outreach, which I'll talk about here in a second. Next slide. So we do a data-driven approach, much like the other 2 cities. So we prioritize our prioritization is based on vulnerable populations first, seniors in the home, age of housing stock. The city of Detroit outlawed lead service signs in 1948. So we look at age of housing stock, as well as children and seniors in the home, and the economic data from the census. So that's how we prioritize the areas that we go into first, because with so many lead service lines, we got to start with those areas. Next slide. This is our public map, which is on the City of Detroit website. For current, it's live, so it's updated daily as we replace lead service lines, and as we get updated contractor data, or our public customers, they inform us through a smart sheet through the website. If they have identified through the basement that they have a lead service line, we can update the data on our public map. Next slide. And here's that data informs us on these are the areas we're going to go and throughout the city. 43,000 lead lines, service lines impacted roughly between 2023 and ahead. And this is completed. Hydrovac means we're just doing inspections of the service line. Those are grant funded areas that we're inspecting and informing the data, then going back to replace those service lines later on. Next slide. And then we do deliberate, like Milwaukee, deliberate outreach, and we spend about $43 per house on door hanger packets, community meetings, and direct outreach to make sure they know why we're replacing the lead service line, when, and what the process is, and get them to sign the agreement. And in Detroit, because of the Michigan lead and copper rule, we do allow the renter to sign the agreement to authorize us to replace the lead service line with copper. And we share our outreach materials, which I believe is on the next slide. And we have a very extensive packet that we distribute. So it's clear what we're doing and what steps the homeowner or resident needs to take after we replace the lead service line at their home. And that will be my presentation. Thank you very much.
Yes, much appreciated, Brian, and thank you for that detailed explanation of your program. Now we'll get started with some Q&A of some questions that we've prepared here at BlueGreen Alliance. First question would be, and I think some of you have already alluded to this, where would you be if federal resources weren't available, right? A lot of you have been able to significantly increase the pace of replacement since 2020. And again, where would you be if those federal dollars weren't accessible for your communities? Let's start with you, Brian.
Certainly, the federal dollars have helped us to ramp up and have contractor capacity. So in 2023, when we got about $90 million from the federal government through 3 different sources, SRF and ARPA, we were able to then do contractor outreach to get more contractors, and also start up an employee crews, the 3 employee crews, and purchase equipment to have those employee crews do replacements. So that allowed us to scale up our program. And because we were able to scale up now, we're able to both scale back and scale up depending on the available resources, as well as our pace that we need to do to be in compliance with the lead and copper rule. So that was a very significant measure to have that grant funding.
Very crucial resources for communities. Thanks for that, Brian. Next, let's go to Mr. Patrick Pauly. Where would your community be if those federal dollars weren't available for the past few years?
We would be in a far more difficult position than we're currently in, and we certainly wouldn't have replaced anywhere near what we've replaced last year and this year. We were on, I showed this slide earlier, we were on 1,000 per year pace. That would have had to increase. That pace was too slow, far too slow. So we would have tried to expand, but the property owner would have been covering a portion of that cost. There would have been far more difficult conversations to how to cover the remainder of the private side cost. Right now, the utility and ratepayers cover the public side cost. The city covers the private side cost. Our financial situation is challenging year after year. It would have been difficult for the city to absorb those costs for an expanded lead service line replacement program. So we would have been talking about alternatives, but there is no way we would have expanded to 2,700 last year, 3,500 this year, or 5,000 next year. We would have probably set a goal of getting to 2,000 replacements, but it would have been a much slower process and, slowly expand. This has allowed us to expand very rapidly.
Thanks for that, Pat. Mr. Grillo, where would your community be if those federal dollars were not available for the past few years?
So I would say definitely there was a benefit early on with those dollars to get our early programs off the ground, especially with our equity and our daycare programs. Those were the programs that we kicked off with first. So without those federal dollars, it would have been very difficult to get those programs up and running until we were able to kind of get our feet under ourselves and start to secure other funding. But it definitely was crucial to get those first programs going and get the word out and get things moving.
Yeah, really important. Next, let's talk about the differences between this year's construction season and last year's. Where were you at this time last year compared to today, and why are you in a different situation than what you were in last year? Let's go back to you, Mr. Grillo.
So comparing last year to this year, the big difference for us, I think, is like Bryan and Pat both said, the block level projects. We're seeing a much higher percentage of participation when we're doing a block level project. We're in the mid early, I should say 80%, high 80% range for block level projects. And it's because we're on the block for a little bit. Those individual locations where you're bouncing around throughout the city, as we're required to do that, so we do, but we would really like to get to a more geographic deployment where we can do block by block. So I think the big thing for us this year compared to last year is we've increased that block level capacity, and that's making a big difference for us.
Great. Pat, Pauly, Milwaukee has been able to scale significantly between this year and last year. What are the biggest differences between this year's construction season and what was going on last construction season?
We had a far earlier start to the customer outreach process. Last year, our customer outreach, I don't believe, started until May or June, and that very much delayed the start of construction. And then we had what I would describe as a chaotic end of the construction season. We ended up exceeding the goal, but the last 2 months of the year were very stressful based on contractors. Contractors had the volume or the assigned locations, but it stressed out our internal staff. Our DNS staff does plumbing and electrical inspections, our meter staff. It was a very chaotic and stressful finish to the year. This year, we started customer outreach earlier. We issued contracts earlier. We specified more consistent production in each of the contracts to try to require contractors to maintain the same level of resources. It's still not perfect, and it's still going to result in a very busy end of the year, but it won't be quite like last year. And as I mentioned earlier, we're starting customer outreach for next year in November.
Got it. So kind of getting started earlier is helps you to have a more fruitful construction season. Mr. Peckinpaugh, I know in your slides you mentioned that ARPA was a big source of your funding, and I think you guys managed to replace about 10,000 lead service lines this year. What are the biggest differences from this year's construction season to last year's?
Very good question, Richard. So the last 2 years, because of the ARPA funding, we were able to replace 11,000 lines in the last 2 years combined, 3,800 this year, and about, just actually close to 12,000. So we were able to scale up rapidly last year. And what we found is the money was winding down. we actually took these contractors that were doing lead service lines and we offered other bid opportunities for other water main and sewer work. We have some alley sewer repair work that's happening. So we're offering these other opportunities to these contractors who've come in for lead service line replacement in order to keep them in the area, to keep them in Detroit, keep them working, so that when we have additional money next year, that we're able to then have them bid on those, still be in the area, have them bid on those lead service line replacement contracts. So we're able to, like I said earlier, scale up and then also scale back depending on the funding. And this year, one other thing that was beneficial is the weather has been very cooperative. Although we didn't have rain and it got dry up until this week, is actually very cooperative for both replacement and especially restoration. We're actually ahead of the schedule this year for restoration compared to last year. So we're only 40 houses that we have to complete for restoration from the last 2 years. So that's been a significant help with the weather cooperating.
Got it. Well, as you all know, BlueGreen Alliance is both an environmental organization and a labor organization. And many of our labor partners we work with talk about how they have the contractors, the workers, and the workforce training to support the country's ability to replace all its lead service lines. How has your utility partnered with or communicated with unions and their contractor bases about workforce needs and been able to showcase your vision to fully replace every lead service line within your water system? Let's go back to you, Bryan.
For workforce development, we have partnered with our unions here in the Detroit and the state of Michigan. In fact, our field services technicians are ASME employees or union employees, and 12 of them work on the lead service line replacement team. So we do have union-based employees on the lead service line replacement, and we use the lead service line replacement program internally as an opportunity for them to move up in their career. They may have started replacing the repairing water mains or doing sewer work or cleaning basins, and we move them up through the lead service line replacement program as a career growth opportunity. We also partner with the local plumbers union because we do need each contractor to have a plumber to do the final connection to the house, and then make sure the resident knows what steps they need to take. Because one of the things that happens when you have replace a lead service line that's been in the ground since the 1940s, it might have some debris in it. You're getting a brand new copper line. The pressure value in the house may have gone up. So we inform the residents on what to expect with their bathrooms, kitchens, and other plumbing.
Thanks for that, Bryan. Same question for you, Mr. Pauly. How has your utility partnered with your local unions to articulate the vision for full lead service line replacement and get some assurance of workforce and contractor capacity?
We've had a number of conversations with the local unions. We've met with individually with our primary contractors. The city has a small business enterprise requirement on all contracts, a residence preference program for hours worked on all contracts, and a apprenticeship requirement on almost all contracts. What we've focused on most recently is expanding the apprenticeship requirements for the larger lead service line replacements. And that means in the past we required an apprentice laborer. We're now requiring a certain number of hours be worked by apprentice electrician and equipment operator. And we've further dialed that in by requiring that the apprentice hours be worked by people who've graduated from a pre-apprenticeship program in the last couple of years. And so we've partnered with the local employment agencies, WRTP Big Step and Employ Milwaukee, to try to make sure that, to your question, Richard, that there is an available workforce out here that can be utilized for lead service line replacement. So we've made slow progress, but we've made progress.
Great. Thanks for that, Pat. Mike, same question for you. How has your utility partnered with the local labor unions to get some assurance on contracting and workforce capacity?
Yeah, so we have been having that conversations with definitely with our plumbers union and with local contractors to try to get them aware this is coming, right? It's going to be ramping up. I was able to just last week I toured our plumbers union hall, their training facility. They have actually incorporated lead service line replacements and water main tapping into their training for their apprentices. They have a pretty impressive training center there, and they recognize that there's a need for these plumbers to be trained specifically to do this work, and so they're really working to get all their apprentices up to speed because all contractors are going to be looking for plumbers because similar to what I think Bryan was saying, like in Chicago, all plumbing work has to be done by a licensed plumber. There's other people on that crew that can help, but the plumbing work has to be done by a plumber, and most jobs have it's obviously at least one, but maybe two plumbers on each job. And with contractors, I think we have about 25 different lead service line contracts out there awarded. So, there is a need for both in-house for the city of Chicago and the contractors to have these plumbers that have them trained on how to do this work. So it's going to be busy. It's going to be it's going to get crazy around Chicago for sure.
Yeah, a lot of work coming online. Definitely. Definitely. Okay. Let's switch gears a bit and talk about some of the federal stuff happening. So earlier this year, the federal government imposed tariffs on imported products from selected countries. Has this impacted the cost of materials for your lead service line replacement program? And if so, how? Let's go to you first, Pat.
I don't know that there's been a significant impact yet. I did have a conversation with a local supplier about a month ago, and the price of copper has increased by about 20%. And so that sounds like a lot, but the price of copper is a very small percentage of the cost to replace a lead service line. So I don't know that it's impacted our pricing yet. I will say that we have had some challenges, supply chain challenges with ordering materials, and the utility supplies everything but the copper related to the water main materials. So we supply the corp stop, the curb stop, the box parses. So we've had some long lead times for obtaining service line parts, and I think we're concerned that may continue. The cost, I don't know that has quite shown up, but the longer this continues, the more likely it is going to have an appreciable impact on material costs, which will increase the cost of replacement.
Thanks for that, Pat. Let's go to you, Bryan. Have the tariffs impacted the cost of materials for lead service line replacement in Detroit?
Similar to Milwaukee and Pat, we're hearing the same information. It's more about the supply chain cost and availability. So when you have all these cities, including the three of us and Cleveland and other cities in the Midwest and part of the East Coast replacing lead service lines, there's quite a demand on the supply chain. So making sure that there's pre-purchases, our procurement team is very proactive in making sure that there's enough inventory for the supplies for copper and the parts that we need. Our issue continues to be more the labor force and the rising cost of the labor force, as well as, we have to take in consideration what is the contractor impact moving forward when healthcare costs go up in the near future, which we're already seeing news reports of that going up locally with our local Blue Cross Blue Shield. So we have to take that into account for our labor costs.
Thanks for that, Bryan. Mike, same question for you. Have the federal tariffs imposed any increase in pricing for materials for lead service line replacement?
So agree with my colleagues. I don't think we've seen the impact just yet. I mean, we have seen some incremental increases in some material like copper. I don't know if that's artificial, if it's, if it's suppliers raising the price and blaming the tariffs. I don't know. But supply chain issues and delays in getting material, I think the tariffs will at some point impact any imported equipment that we may be using. Those prices may go up. Most of our construction contracts have the Buy America component to it, but as all of these suppliers now going to the same source, that will probably increase the cost on some of that. We, like I said, have seen a small increase in copper, but I don't think we've seen the full impact of what that's going to be yet.
Got it. Got it. All right. We are almost ready to close the books on state fiscal year 25. And many of you are utilizing the federal fiscal year 24 lead service line replacement appropriation from bill to state revolving funds for your state fiscal year 25 construction season. Considering we are in the fourth quarter of 2025 and have yet to see the EPA release the bipartisan infrastructure law's lead service line replacement money for this year, how has that impacted your lead service line replacement program, and how does that impact your plans for 2026? Let's go to you first, Pat.
Well, it's causing earlier in the year when we were asking our DNR about the funding, they assured us repeatedly that the funding's coming. It's being delayed because there was a change to the formula that was being used to allocate it to the states. And so I think there's a lot of trust still happening, but the concern is growing. We need to issue contracts by the end of the year to be ready to start in March. And so we had delayed advertising and bidding those contracts with the hope that we would know more about the funding in September and now October. We decided to move forward, though. We have to issue those contracts. So there's a little bit of a leap of faith. We still have not been given any indication that the allocations will not be made, but it certainly is making it more difficult to make decisions about how to move forward. The goal remains 5,000 replacements for next year, so we're not meeting that goal unless we start now. And so we're starting now with the anticipation that the funding is coming. Certainly the government shutdown is making that even more challenging to predict when it'll happen, but we're moving forward. There was a slight delay, but we have to move forward.
Got it. Thank you for that, Pat. Mike, same question for you. We still haven't gotten the federal fiscal year 25 money for lead service line replacement. It's pretty late in the game. How is that impacting Chicago and your plans for 2026?
So it's definitely causing some heartburn, I would say, right? But like Pat said, we are planning for next year and the year after today, right? So we have plans in motion. We have contracts that have to be put out. We don't have time to wait. So I don't want to say it's not affecting us, but we're going to be pushing forward. We're going to be moving forward. We'll have to find that funding somewhere. But it's definitely, in the back of your mind, like, are we going to get this or not? But with the, at least with all of us, right, especially for Chicago, with the amount of replacements that we have to perform, we don't have time to wait around to find out what's going to happen. We have to put these things in motion now, and hope that the funding's going to be there. We'll have to find it somewhere to keep everything going.
Thanks for that, Mike. Same question for you, Bryan.
Sure. So similar concerns here in Detroit, especially we also have a mayoral transition. So we have a lot of dynamics going on. So our current mayor, who's been mayor for 12 years, has resigned. So we have a next mayor. So we have that dynamic as well as the federal and state dynamics. But we have to, similar to Chicago and Milwaukee, we have to hit a threshold, at least a minimum. So in Detroit, it's 3,500 lead service lines replaced next year. So we're looking at a combination of areas of state revolving fund and possibly some federal funds. But we don't want to solely count on those areas. So we are looking at how do we adjust the rates to account for this, because we can use bond money for full lead service line replacement. So we are looking at that and preparing our mayoral administration on what that might look like for the city if we have to use some bond funds to meet that 3,500 replacement. So we're going to do it no matter what, no matter how much funding we receive from the state or federal government to meet that threshold.
Thank you, Brian. Next question. So the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund has been a dedicated source of funding for drinking water infrastructure for projects for decades. The proposed federal fiscal year 2026 budget seeks to shrink the federal appropriation to states' revolving fund projects. If less resources from your state's drinking water SRF are available, how will that impact your ability to fund water infrastructure projects? And how will that impact your customer base? Let's start with you, Brian.
Thank you. So building off my previous comment, we are going to look at using, we actually projected out the next 5 years. What if we use capital bond dollars for water main replacement and lead service line replacement on a going forward basis, knowing that we might be limited for SRF funding. So we're looking at what would the rate increase be on an annual basis and what to prepare for, and also get that out to the community to let them know what to expect. There are some communities in the state of Michigan that actually have put a fee on the water bill for lead service line replacement. I believe in Bay City, Michigan, they actually have a fee for lead service line replacement. So we're looking at different revenue mechanisms, because SRF and SRF, even if it goes back to what was 2 years ago, is still, as you said in your intro, is not 100% of the need. So we do have to look for a balance of funding sources, including the bond funds through the rate mechanism.
I'm going to water rates to fund lead service line replacement or other water projects. Got it. Got it. Mike, let's go to you next. You know, the state revolving fund is on the chopping block federally for federal fiscal year 26. How will that impact Chicago's ability to finance water infrastructure projects, and what kind of impact will that have on your customer base?
So we have received in 2025 $14 million in SRF funding. It's principal forgiveness for our census tract block level projects, which is great, right? 14 million is great. It's just a small percentage of the overall number that we need. Obviously, it's a concern for overall water infrastructure projects, including water main projects, because we had a delay in the beginning stages of lead service lines where our CIP work was a little bit slower to kick off. So we are now beginning to build plans to ramp that up. Next year we're planning on 20 miles of water main replacement, another 10 miles of sewer main replacement. But for the water side of things, with that funding being cut, it's a concern of how we fund these projects. But again, like I said, we have to plan ahead. We can't wait too long to make our plans, so we have to find that funding somewhere. But it will definitely affect what we're estimating out, the plans that we have made, if that funding shrinks too much.
So kind of like contingency planning, basically.
Yes.
Got it. Same question for you, Pat.
Yeah, very similar to Chicago and Detroit. We have, in addition to the lead service line replacement program, we have a capital budget of about $50 million per year, split between water main replacement and improvements at the treatment plants, pumping facilities, storage facilities. Those costs aren't changing. And I mean, long term, we have aging infrastructure in the ground and our vertical facilities. So we've used the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program for 4 decades for water main replacements and for large capital improvement projects at our treatment plants. And we have a number of projects in the near future, filter bed remediation at both plants. One is underway. The second one will begin beginning as soon as And if we are unable to access funding through the Safe Drinking Water Load Program, we will have to bond independently, and the terms will be far less friendly. They will be more costly, and so that those costs will end up on our ratepayers.
Thank you for that, Pat. All right, last question for me, and then we'll get into some audience questions. Stated this time and time again, and some of you have alluded to this also, we have one more year of federal money left from the bipartisan infrastructure law for lead service line replacement. How do you foresee the next few construction season going? And can you go into some explicit detail about what is needed to support your city's ability to successfully remove every lead service line? Let's go to you, Bryan.
Oh, we have about a $800 million cost to replace the remaining lead service lines in the next 10 years. So in order to do that, we have to have to diversify the funding. And so for next year, we're fortunate that we did get the congressional appropriation and was approved and awarded for Army Corps to remove about 3,000 service lines, 3,000 lead service lines of previously demolished residential houses. So we believe we'll hit the threshold next year, the 3,500 minimum. So we're looking at what do we do with our water main replacement projects, as well as that coupled with our lead service line replacement for the houses that have lead as we go down and replace the water main. And then how do we do that through our capital program? We do have a fortunate instance where we have a regional authority that pays us $50 million a year to lease our facilities that the city of Detroit still owns. So we use that to maximize our bond capacity for our capital program. So we are going to likely have to access some of those dollars to meet our minimum of 3,500 lines next year. And our primary goal, as I said earlier, is to also make sure we keep the contractors here. We have contractors locally and also contractors that have come from other states for lead service line replacement to move them to other projects while we wait for additional funding for this program.
Thanks for that, Bryan. Mike, let's go to you next. One more year of funding left. How do you foresee the next few construction seasons going? And what support does your utility need to successfully replace every lead service line in your water system?
So yeah, I think the overall answer is funding, right? If we can pay for it, we can build it. The next few construction seasons for us are going to be crucial as we ramp up to try to get to that 19,000 a year replacement rate. Even with the prices that we see in Chicago, even at 12 or 15,000 replacements a year, the funding that's needed is pretty staggering. So we have to be ready to ramp this up and then keep that pace for 20 years beyond that. So it's trying to find the funding that is going to be around not just for a few years, but for a long time to be able to keep this project going. So funding is what we need.
Pretty similar theme across the board. Pat, let's go to you. Same question. How do you envision the next few construction seasons going, and what support does your utility need to successfully remove every lead service line?
I mean, funding is the obvious answer. I think contractor capacity, we talked about workforce development. We've been fortunate so far with contractor capacity, but I think Bryan brought this up earlier with lead service line programs being expanded throughout the Midwest. There is an open question about whether, as we continue to expand, we're going to be able to find enough contractors to do this work. Our bidding pool is pretty small. As I said, we've been fortunate with the companies that have bid that have had the capacity, but expanding again next year. We're hopeful it'll be fine. As I said, we anticipate the funding allocations will be made for the next 2 years. We had heard that the bill funding, there may be a funding remaining in smaller allocations for a couple of years after 2026. But then the question becomes, how do we fund this moving forward? And we have some options. The utility can absorb part of the cost of the private side. There may be a return of the property owner contribution, the bonding. These are all conversations we're preparing for, but quite honestly, we need more funding from the federal government to continue this momentum. We really do. The burden on either the ratepayers or the property or the property tax base for the city would be significant to continue the program in its current format without federal funding.
All right, Pat, way to end us off on our prepared questions. Now I'll start to facilitate a discussion with you all with some audience questions. First question comes from Curdy Gopal of Climate News. For all panelists, what permits are required in your city for lead service line replacement? What is the cost of these permits? Which departments issue the permits? And are there any permits that are waived? Let's go to you first, Bryan.
That's a good question because there are multiple municipal departments that deal with the lead service line replacement while we do the actual replacement with our contractors and employee crews. There is our buildings department that issues the plumbing permits, which is about $600 per house. We do incur that cost as part of our replacement costs for each household. We also, when a contractor goes to a neighborhood, they want a staging area for that. So we do use vacant, previously demoed houses, vacant land, and they have to get a lease agreement. The contractor has to get a lease agreement. We have to sign off on it to use that staging area. Then they have to restore that area once they leave the neighborhood or as they're leaving the neighborhood. And so there's that cost for them. We waive the water tap fee because we're required to do the replacement. We don't incur that cost or add that cost. So our permits team internally waive that fee. So there's just the building safety plumbing permit and lease agreement to have a staging area for the neighborhood.
Thanks for that, Bryan. Let's go to you next, Pat.
So I'm testing. There are 3 permits required for each lead service line replacement. One's a street occupancy, street opening permit for the excavation. There's a water service permit, and then there's another permit associated with the water service, either for meter setting or plumbing inspection. The fees are administrative only for all of those permits. They're done under DPW contracts, so similar to our water main replacement contracts. If you're operating under DPW contract, the street opening occupancy, I don't even know if there is an administrative fee. That might be no fee. The water service permit, because the costs land on the utility in the end anyway, they're administrative, and I believe they're in the low hundreds of dollars range for each location.
Got it. Mike, same question for you.
So permits for lead service line replacements, there are similar to Milwaukee and Detroit. There is a tap fee, right? There's a tap permit that comes from the water department. We waive those fees, obviously, but the street opening permits, which are those are issued through our Department of Transportation. We don't waive the fees for street opening permits. They have to pay those permits. However, through our owner initiated program, we will waive a total of $5,000 in permit fees. I believe, like right now, let's just say a 1-inch service, a tap fee is about $2,000. So that gets waived, and then they can put 3,000 towards the street opening. I'm not exactly familiar with how much the street opening permits run. I think it really depends on what street it's on. If it's a main thoroughfare or a side street or things like that. But there's, there is also a what we would call a B permit for sometimes for the meter install, but that's a free permit. But yeah, it's the tap permit, which is waived, street opening permits, and then there may be a third permit that goes along with the meter, but that's a no charge permit.
Got it. Question for you, Mike. DWM has previously said the average cost of lead service line replacement in Chicago is about $35K. Do you have an estimate of the average per line cost this year? And can you speak to why lead service line replacement is so much more expensive in Chicago versus the other cities?
So I think our average cost is coming down slightly as we start rolling out block level projects, because now it's less mobilization. The contractor is on site. They know they're going to have 20 or 30 services on that block to replace. The average is coming down. I'll say it's around anywhere between 25,000 and 30,000 a service. I think one of the biggest drivers that we see here are labor costs. Our prevailing wages are pretty high, and that's part of it. I think early on the issue was with our early contracts, a lot of unknowns in our contracts. We would issue a contract to an area, and the contractor really had no idea where they were going to be working. So of course they would bid that cost out at worst case scenario. So we are trying to get smarter with our contracts that go out, be more specific, eliminate those unknowns, so they know exactly the size of the services, where they're located, where they're going to be going. They kind of take a look at that before they place their bids. But yeah, I think we're finally starting to see some of those costs come down slightly. And we're also making changes to the contracts as far as pulling things out, like outreach on certain contracts. The city will perform the outreach instead of putting it on the contractor. Restorations, we will have our restoration vendor cover the restoration as opposed to the plumbing contractor subbing that out. To try to take some of that added cost so that the plumbing contractor is just doing the plumbing work. That's what they do. That's what they're good at. And the outreach and the restoration, we leave it to others. We're still paying for it, but we see a better price on that.
Got it. Thank you for that. Question from Mr. Larry Levine of NRDC for Patrick and Bryan. I know that Chicago has some concerns about their legal ability to use revenue bonds to pay for lead service line replacement on private property. Are Detroit and Milwaukee able to use revenue bonds to pay for replacements on private property? Let's start with you, Pat.
Not typically. All the public utilities in Wisconsin are regulated by the Public Service Commission. The Public Service Commission did create a program some years ago, I want to say 2017 or 2018, that would allow us to make application to use ratepayer funds to pay for 50% of the private side cost. I don't think Milwaukee has not explored that alternative because of the presence of the bill funding, but it's certainly something that we will be considering if the bill funding is exhausted. I believe one of the requirements of that program, though, is the other 50% must be absorbed by the property owner. And so our program, when it first started, was a third of the cost went to property owner, a private side went to property owner. This would not be, although costs have come down, so it might be a similar cost ultimately. But so not typically, we are not typically allowed to use revenue bonds for private side.
Thanks, Pat. Bryan, is Detroit able to use revenue bonds to pay for lead service line replacements on private property?
Yes, we can use revenue bonds for that purpose for two reasons. We found a federal report regarding the use of municipal bonds for lead service line replacement. And the major reason for us here is that the Michigan Lead and Copper Rule does require the municipality to replace the full lead service line at the municipality's cost. So that rule in Michigan allows us theoretically to use the bond dollars We try to avoid using bond dollars as much as possible. We prefer, like the other cities, to have federal funds and SRF dollars, but we do have that capacity and have used, as of this year, $30 million in revenue bonds for lead service line replacement. The full lead service line replacement, public and private side.
Got it. Thank you. Next question for all panelists from my colleague Frank Houston. Following up on Richard's question on federal resources, how are you approaching securing additional state or local resources to supplement lead service line replacement work, or dealing with those cuts to resources, such as what just happened in Michigan's budget? Have you been able to build any sort of coalitions or partnerships that you like to highlight that have been helpful in lead service line replacement efforts or securing, protecting resources? Let's start with you, Mike.
Okay, so that trying to let it all process a little bit. So what we're doing with funding is we go out for general obligation bonds, obviously for private side money. So we have a $336 million Whitfield loan we use for the public side. We go out for general obligation bonds or geo bonds for the private side. Couple those together to do this work. As of right now, that is the plan forward. But we know that's not sustainable. We can't bond this all out. It's just too much. So there needs to be something needs to be figured out. So a lot of those decisions are being worked out through the CFO's office and others in my department to try to figure out what they can do for us to be able to move forward. But as far as right now, that's how we're operating.
Got it. Bryan, same question for you. How are you approaching securing additional state or local resources to supplement the lead service line replacement work? And have you been able to build any sort of coalitions or partnerships that you'd like to highlight that have been helpful in lead service line replacement efforts?
Well, certainly the NACWA and the AWWA, National, the American Water Works Association, and the other associations, as well as WALA, through the U.S. Water Alliance, have been very pivotal in advocating for continued SRF funding. So we are on those coalitions and on those associations to also represent, and our director goes to those national meetings to assist in advocating for SRF funding. Our state relies on federal funding for SRF. It doesn't use any local dollars, so we start with the federal side to advocate for that. We are separately have a coalition on water affordability for the state of Michigan that's separate from lead service line replacement. It's related to bills, but so we are continuing to advocate for affordable water service, as well as affordable capital improvement programs, including lead service line replacement.
Got it. Thanks for that, Bryan. Patrick, how are you approaching securing additional state or local resources to supplement lead service line replacement work? And have you been able to build any sort of coalitions or partnerships that you'd like to highlight that have been helpful in the lead service line replacement efforts?
Well, I think this webinar is a perfect example of the types of things we've been doing. I mean, we are trying to spend the money as efficiently and effectively as possible to prove that it's necessary and it's beneficial, and sharing that story with anyone who will listen. I don't know that we've successfully built a coalition. I know certainly our partnership with you, Richard, and Coalition on Lead Emergency and EPIC, and sharing our story with, like I said, whoever is willing to listen, has been kind of this money has created momentum that never would have been created in the past. And in order to keep that going, it's unfortunate that we, the municipalities, need additional federal funding, but I don't know who else has the resources to assist in a matter like this. We've tried to build momentum with the state. I know the Governor Evers in Wisconsin has included some funding for lead service line replacements in his state budgets, the last two bienniums, I believe. It hasn't made it through the budget process. I think there's potentially some hope that if there isn't federal funding at some point, the state will be able to assist, but it's not just about Milwaukee. I think there are lead service lines present all over the state of Wisconsin. It's not just a Milwaukee situation. There is a need in more than just the larger cities. So it's a challenge though.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for that, Pat. All right, next question. For Chicago, we can ask all panelists this. I think you all have answered this to some degree. What is the biggest obstacle to simply replacing more lead service lines? And how can local groups or nonprofits help? Let's start with you, Mike.
So the biggest obstacle to replacing more lead service lines, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously, and I've already said it, right? If we can pay for it, we can build it. The biggest obstacle at this point is getting enough. The level of replacements that need to be done is not something that the department can handle, obviously. So we have to put contracts out there. So we can put all the contracts out that we need to, but the funding needs to be there to pay for that. We also need then more construction management, more oversight to make sure things are happening the way they should be. So I think one of the biggest obstacles is getting the contractors, making sure they're building capacity, make sure that we're not all pulling from the same pool, and all of a sudden contractors are going to go to wherever they're going to get paid the most, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to bring our costs down, trying to make it a little bit more level, and then this way we can put out more contracts. We're trying to get smaller contractors involved by putting out like small business initiatives, putting out contracts that are lower at a lower amount. So the big guys kind of leave those. Number one, they wouldn't qualify for, but they kind of leave those to the smaller contractors and let them build their capacity up, and then they can become a prime and they can bring on new subs to take that over. But as far as I think outreach is huge, right? And I didn't really talk on the outreach that Chicago is doing, but similar to Milwaukee and Detroit. Before any project starts, any type of block level project, we meet with the alderman, we have a meeting with them, we have a community meeting with that block. Everyone's aware of what's happening. So they're not taken by surprise. That's why those one-offs make it so difficult. I think for us to be able to get more work done, we need to try to get away from the leaks and breaks or from those one-off locations and do more block by block. We'll get higher participation, we'll get more work done. And that's, we could use all the help that we can get as far as the outreach and getting the word out, because it's just yesterday, I think I had gotten a phone call that someone's knocking on doors telling people, hey, they can replace your service line for $8,000. That's not us because we don't charge. So we got to try to keep that push down, let everybody know what's real and what's not.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Bryan, simply put, what is the biggest obstacle to replacing more lead service lines, and how can local groups or nonprofits help?
Well, the biggest obstacle here in Detroit is funding, like the other cities. So when you take that piece out, as we're advocating for more funding, the second one would be initially it was the outreach. So, but we had to be very deliberate on partnering with our council members, similar to Chicago and the aldermen's, partnering with our council members to make sure they were advanced what areas we were going to, and our department neighborhoods, which represent all 7 districts. There's a person individually for each district. So making sure they're on board before we even go to the community and start having the outreach meetings, so that we can have 100% compliance when the contractor goes to the house and schedules the appointment for replacement. They're not hitting any roadblocks, everybody's aware. And we've also, in the last 2 years, been very upfront from the mayor down to our organization, publicly and in news stories about our lead service line replacement program and and where we're going and what neighborhoods, and we very clear about it so that people know that we're coming and that that isn't an impediment. So initially outreach was the issue, not anymore. And initially contractor capacity was 3 years ago, but we made concerted efforts and had someone focused on that, Tiffany Jones, to increase our contractor capacity. And so now the issue is funding.
Got it. Pat, same question for you. What is the biggest obstacle in replacing more lead service lines, and how can local groups or nonprofits help?
So we talked about funding, contractor capacity, outreach. A couple of years ago, I would have said internal utility capacity, but we're in a far better position now than we were then. We still have a public trust challenge. I don't know, it's certainly not the biggest challenge to replacing more lead service lines, but there are areas of the community that don't trust the water utility or the city for that matter, and sometimes we're one and the same. And so I think we've been talking about this a lot most recently as we begin our public outreach for next year, trying to connect better with some of the anchor institutions in the neighborhoods we're working, the schools, the churches, the CBOs in these neighborhoods, to try to help build trust with them, which will hopefully help build trust with the individual residents of the neighborhood. I think the more of this we do and the more the word gets out and the more people know someone who had a lead service line replaced and everything went fine and the disturbance wasn't that intrusive and the project went smoothly and quickly, the more that word spreads in the communities. But we're still struggling to get our feet under us, I think, a little bit there. Even though we've replaced 11,000 services, it's surprising to me when I attend community meetings how little people know about what we're doing, when it seems like I spend most of every day talking about lead service line replacements in some fashion or another. So there's a public trust component here as well.
Got it. All right, I'd like to be considerate of time. We got 3 minutes left. I don't think we'll be able to get through any more questions with going around the horn. So if you all could just share, more about how communities can get in contact with you, where they can learn about your lead service line replacement program, I think that'd be great. Let's start with you, Bryan.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you for the opportunity the Alliance to have us to talk about our lead service line replacement program, the challenges and the solutions. And anyone could get in touch with us through the City of Detroit website. We do have a dedicated page called the Lead Service Line Replacement Program. The short link is detroitmi.gov/LSLR for lead service line replacement. They can get in touch with us through there and hear about our program. And we'd be happy to answer any questions that they may have. And thank you again for having us hosting this webinar. We really appreciate the conversation.
You got it. Pat?
Similar to Detroit, we have if you go to the City of Milwaukee website or milwaukee.gov/water, that will get you to the Waterworks website. There's a whole pull down area devoted to lead pipes and the different programs and the progress we've made and the requirements. So there's certainly plenty of information out there, and I'm try to make myself available as much as possible if anybody has questions. We have a marketing and comms person who's available as well, so we can be emailed in addition. And I think our marketing and comms email is right on the website. I don't remember it offhand.
Got it. Thanks, Pat. Mike.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Richard, for having us. Thank you for having me. I think if they go to our main city website, cityofchicago.org, you can get to our water department page. That's in a drop down, and you can message us that way. There's also another site, leadsafechicago.org. There's a link to that site also on the main city page. That'll bring you to that site, and then we'll go through all the programs that we offer. In either one, there should be a link there to contact us. If it's not me directly, it's to someone that will get that message to me, and we'll respond that way.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. We will be following up via email to share the materials from this webinar today, and you can also find the recording on the BlueGreen Alliance YouTube channel. Thank you again.